Hi guys, and welcome to Escape with Watch Reviews. My name is Steve, and today we're going to be reviewing the BERNY model AM141M. I received this watch for free. I don't have to send it back, but you guys know the deal by now. It's not going to sway my review one way or another. You're always going to get my honest opinion on these watches on this channel. And if by the end of this review you do want to pick one of these up, I will be leaving a link down in the video description. That is an affiliate link. You guys don't pay any extra. I'll just get a little bit of commission, and that'll help keep the channel running. The current retail price for this watch is $122 US. That is before taxes, coupons, VAT, anything like that. So just keep that in mind. The BERNY, they do participate in the sales, so if you're patient, you can probably get a pretty decent deal on this watch. The watch comes in 3 different colorways that you can see here, and then they let you play a little bit with the bezel colors as well, so go check out the listing to see all the different options that you can pick from. The watch case is made of 316L stainless steel. It has a sapphire crystal with AR coating, a push-pull crown, a screw-down case back, 50 meters of claimed water resistance, has Swiss BGW9 on the dial and the hands, and the watch is powered by the Chinese PT5000 high-beat automatic movement. So this is a pretty interesting watch from BERNY. You know, BERNY seems to be hit or miss with their watches, in my opinion. Some of them are really good, some of them are just not great. So I say we get into the full review, but before we do a quick wrist check today. This is the Nano Universe Limited Edition Hamilton Khaki Field 38 that just arrived yesterday. Really, I dig it. I like it a lot. I do need to change that crystal because it is very, very reflective. All right, first things first, as always, we get the dimensions out of the way. We got 38.7 millimeters in diameter, 11.4 millimeters thick. The bracelet starts at 25 millimeters and tapers down to about 18 millimeters at the clasp. The effective total length on this watch is 54.3 millimeters and sized up for my 7.5 inch wrist with 3 links removed. It weighs about 128 grams. So for the most part, I think the size on this thing is great. That 39 millimeters is just about right for me. The thickness is also in check thanks to the PT5000. The lug width, or I guess the bracelet width, is about standard for a watch like this. But obviously the big deal on this thing is that effective, total length, or lug to lug, 54 millimeters. That is big. That's big even for me, and I have big wrists. So if you are small wristed, this will not work for you. I'm just going to say that right now. Just look at that. The links, they do drop straight down after that, but you're going to need some big wrists to pull this off. I am kind of right on the edge in my opinion. So for me, I think it's fine. For anyone with smaller than 7-inch wrists, I think it's going to be a hard sell. So I am going to go outside right now and throw this on my wrist for you. And here we are on my 7.5 inch wrist, and as you can see, I can pull it off. There's a little bit of a kink in that bracelet there just because of that first fixed link. So yeah, it's going to be a tough wear for smaller wrists, I'll say that. For me, I think it just about gets a pass, but yeah, anything smaller than mine, it's going to be a little bit rough, I think, in my opinion. But there you can see, really nice light play off the bracelet, off the bezel. I think it all looks pretty good, even under this oak tree, which usually struggles. There's no issue reading the time on this thing, which is surprising for a white dial and silver hands. But yeah, I do think it all looks pretty good. And popping out in some direct sunlight there, you can see not too bad. There is some air coating on the crystal. I think it does a pretty good job of cutting down on reflections. And yeah, I guess the dial is about as legible as you can get for a white dial with silver indices. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. Obviously no strap show today, but yeah, I'd say let's get right back to the review. Alright, so let's talk about the case finishing. So the case is a mixture of brushed and polished surfaces. Getting up real close, you can see you have a vertical brushing on the top of the case there. It looks really good, and it does match very nicely with the bracelet itself. So that's nice to see. On the case sides here, you have a vertical brushing. I'm usually not a fan of vertical brushing on case sides. It just makes the cases look a little bit thicker, but you can see here they did a pretty good job of keeping that visually very nice and slim. So I think it looks pretty good. The brushing is done pretty nice in my opinion. It's very consistent, and yeah, they did a good job. They also have these nice polished chamfers, and again, getting up real close, you can see the nice sharp chamfers. They look really good. The polishing is good, and the transitions from that brush to polished surface is also pretty good. So yeah, really happy with the case finishing on this thing. I think they did a very nice job. You do have a signed push-pull crown here. This is a little bit hard to interact with. It's very slippery. There's not a whole lot of grip on it. But it's a nice size, and I think it flows with the design of the watch. Yeah, overall pretty satisfied with that. We will talk about the bezel here in just a second. Flipping it to the case back, you have a exhibition case back that's supposed to be sapphire. We're going to test it here. I'll let you know right here if it is sapphire or not. But a simple screw down case back, simple notches there, spec sheet around the outside. Everything is nicely done. Everything is nice and smooth. I see no real issues with it at all. Slipping this watch on the wrist feels pretty good, actually. I'm quite happy with the way this thing feels on wrist. It's actually been pretty nice, pretty comfortable, pretty smooth. Feels good. So this watch does come with a party trick, and that is the bezels. Like I said in the opening, you can get different bezels for this thing. It comes with 3, so this is just a kind of polished and fluted style. They just screw on, screw off, really easy. I haven't had any of them come loose on me or anything like that. You do have a couple different designs here. So here are the other 2 designs. Kind of a smooth yet fluted bezel on the one side, and then this is a more smooth bezel, but it kind of has like a diver's coin edge to it a little bit. I do wish they would have something that's just a smooth bezel, just a smooth sloped bezel without any decoration on it. I think that would actually look pretty good, but maybe it would be a little difficult to get some grip on it to remove it. But you can see, I mean, it's really not a time-consuming thing to change them. There you go, it's on already. You know, they work great. It's nice and smooth, and you can just see it. It's just, I don't know what else to say. It's nice and easy. The last time I had a BERNY with a removable bezel or swappable bezel, you had to take out like 7 or 8 screws, and it just took a while. No issues with this thing. It's nice and smooth and simple, and you can really change up the look pretty easily on this thing. So it's a cool little party trick. I'm not sure how many people are actually going to use it. I have been using it with just this bezel. I kind of tested them all out at first, and then I was like, yeah, I like that one the best, and that's the one I went with. So yeah, I'm not really sure how much you're going to be actually changing the bezel. Maybe if they added some more colors, you know, a gold, a black maybe, it would make it a little bit more useful. But as of right now, it's just kind of a little party trick, but it's nicely done, nicely executed, and fairly useful, I guess. All right, so let's talk about the crystal on this thing. So the crystal, we can test it, is sapphire. And I also tested the crystal on the back off screen, and that one is actually sapphire too. So we have sapphire in the front and sapphire in the back. You can see here, it's just a flat piece of sapphire crystal. Nicely done though. They say it has some AR coating. I tend to believe that. It's actually a really nice crystal. I don't feel like flat sapphires need AR coating, but the fact that they did put some on this thing really helps. Yeah, it's a good crystal. I've got no issues with it. It keeps the dial nice and legible, which is a surprise for a white dial with polished indices. Usually that's just a legibility nightmare. For this, I have no issues with it at all. They picked a pretty good crystal on this thing. All right, so let's talk about the dial and the hands on this thing. The dial, really nice and clean. It's a matte white dial, no texture or anything like that. It looks pretty basic. I'm going to say that. It looks pretty basic. Usually these integrated bracelet watches, they come with pretty fancy or intricate dials. This one is just very clean and very basic. I feel like I could use a little bit of texture or something to it, but really I can't fault them too much. You have applied indices at all the hour markers. You can see here, getting up real close, they are brushed on the top surface and then polished on that little inner surface there. It's an interesting combination. It does kind of catch the light differently at certain angles, as you can see here as I'm playing around with it. But really nicely done. I've got no real issues with it. You have the BERNY branding there at the 12 o'clock. Love it or hate it, it's there and it's in your face. And then a simple automatic there down at the 6 o'clock. Simple date cutout window there. Again, it's fine. It's nothing fancy. Again, it's a very clean dial, and in my opinion, almost too clean, almost too like stark. I do wish they had some sort of design in there. The handset that they used, very, very simple. They look pretty cheap in my opinion. They don't have any fastening. They're just a stamped handset, flat. There's no design to them. They look pretty basic. The length on them is fine. The thickness on them I think is also fine. But yeah, they're just very basic and plain. And that's kind of the feeling I get from the dial in general. It's just a very plain, very boring dial for a watch that's not really boring. So an interesting choice from BERNY for a dial like this. But what they did with it, I think they executed it pretty nicely. The indices are nice and big and bold. You can see when you get real close, and it's something that you do notice on wrist, the lume is just not filled in great. Like on this indice right here, you can see it's just not super smooth. It's not a huge deal. It's not something that really jumps out at you, but it's something that I noticed. Thankfully, the lume on this watch is excellent, so I'm going to pop up a lume shot here. You can see it against a couple other watches in the collection that are 3 times as much, and you can see that this thing just holds its own. It's Swiss BGW9, so it's that ice blue glow, really nice and even between the dial and the hands. They're not really fading faster than one another, so really nice application of lume, which is kind of what I expect from BERNY now. They're really good with their lume. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with the lume on this watch. Yeah, let's talk about the movement and the crown on this thing. So the movement is the Chinese PT5000. It's 28,800 beats per hour, so 8 ticks of the second hand every second. It hand winds. It has a bidirectional winding rotor, so you don't have any rotor spinning around. This is a clone of the ETA 2824, so it kind of has the same nuances that you want to try and hand wind those as little as possible. That mechanism is, I guess, pretty fragile. So yeah, I've been not hand winding this much at all. Just put it on my winder or give it a shake, and then I'll wear it for the day. So yeah, they're great movements. I've had no issues with any of them that I've had. This is how this one has been running, and I don't see how anyone can complain about that. That is excellent, especially at a watch in this price point. Very, very happy with that. You can tell BERNY does regulate these watches. Yeah, this one is running fantastic. And like I mentioned earlier, we do have a sapphire display case back. PT5000 is not a great looking movement, but it's not ugly either. Yeah, but this is just your kind of bare bones PT5000 movement. I think it looks pretty good. It looks good enough. And the movement is operated by this 3 o'clock push-pull crown. It doesn't have much grip on it. It is signed, which is nice. First position is your hand winding, which I don't want to do. Second position, you go into the date function here. You can see everything seems to be pretty nicely centered in there. Got no issues with the date alignment. Looks pretty good. Pulling it out to the second position or third position, it hacks the movement, as you can see there. This is where you set your time. No issues with the grip in this position, but when you're trying to hand wind it, that's when you run into problems. So maybe it's just best not to hand wind this one, like I said, right? So pushing it in, the hands don't jump, starts right back up every single time. It functions exactly as you'd expect a PT5000 movement to function. Very heavy hand winding, but really nice and smooth sweep. Minimal rotor noise as well. Pretty happy with the movement overall, and especially that it's running as good as it is. All right, so let's talk about the bracelet on this thing. So the bracelet, like I mentioned earlier, it's about 25 millimeters at the top here, and it tapers down to 18 millimeters to a butterfly clasp. There's no half links, there's no micro adjustment, so you're kind of at God's will whether this will fit you or not. I was able to get a pretty decent fit on it. So as you can see, the finishing on it is actually pretty darn good. It matches the case nicely. It has that nice polished chamfer there, and the polished chamfer is done fairly consistently. It's not perfect. I'm going to say that it's not perfect on this side here. You can tell that this here and this here, that transition is not the same. So the consistency could be improved, but it's not really something I noticed until I really got it under the camera. But yeah, pretty happy with it actually. The fluidity of the bracelet is actually done pretty nicely. It's an H-link style bracelet, and it has push pins for sizing. The fluidity of it is excellent, as you can see there, except for that very first link, which is just basically stuck to the end of the case. I don't know why they continue to do this. It makes it unusable for anyone under 7 inches. I wouldn't suggest this watch. So yeah, just something to consider. I will say this bottom edge of the case is very nice and soft. Very happy with that. It's super, super comfortable on wrist. Working our way to the butterfly clasp. I don't like butterfly clasps. This one's not horrible. This bottom edge is a little bit sharp, and that does sit on your wrist. And these buttons here, they're pretty decently rounded. They're a little oversized in my opinion, so it does bother my wrist just a little bit. But you know, the main thing with that is there's no half links and there's no micro adjustment. So yeah, I'm not too happy with the bracelet on this thing. The first link articulation or lack thereof is really the big killer on this thing. Otherwise, I think they did a pretty good job with it. The finishing, like I said, is good, and that bottom edge is nice and soft. One of the better, more comfortable bottom edges of bracelets that I've come across. So yeah, if they could fix that first link articulation, that's the one thing that's really holding me back on this watch. So there you go, guys. That is the BERNY AM141M, a integrated bracelet sports watch with a little bit of a twist. You get what I did there? A little bit of a twist. Very simple dial, really good lume, good movement, nice crystal as well. The bracelet is actually pretty good, but I'm going to say this is only for the big wristers, which is sad because that 39 is going to put off, that 39 millimeters. It's going to put off some people just because, like I said, maybe a 7-inch wrist could pull this off, but I think you're going to need closer to 7 1/4, 7.5 inch to really pull this off. And those guys, they tend to like bigger watches. So yeah, I'm not really sure what they could do here. They really need to just rework this first link to make it fully articulate, or articulate a little bit better than this. Because as of right now, for anyone with, you know, average size wrist, it's not going to work very well at all. You're going to get some overhang on the wrist. So yeah, that's the kind of big deal breaker for me right there. Other than that, it's a pretty good overall watch. A little bit boring in the dial, but execution wise and comfort wise, it's up there. They did a pretty good job with it. So yeah, I think that's it for me. Thanks a lot for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one. See ya.